Hi guys, I hope you all are doing well and welcome to the third video of this entire series of Azure Active Directory. In the last video, I demonstrated you how to add a custom domain in Azure Active Directory tenant and how to add company branding to the sign-in page. In this particular video, we will be talking about how to manage users and groups in Azure Active Directory. I will demonstrate you practically how to create users, how to modify user accounts properties, how to assign licenses to the user accounts. We will discuss the type of groups in Azure Active Directory. We will discuss the properties of the groups, how to add members in the groups manually or dynamically using queries. And then I will demonstrate you how to manage users and groups using Azure Active Directory PowerShell commands. If you want to create users from Azure Active Directory, you will go to Users. Here you will see all the users. Those are already created in your Azure AD tenant. If you want to create a new user, you will click on New User tab and then click Create New User. Make sure Create User is selected here, and then you need to fill these details. You need to select the username. For example, I will select test user, and then you can select the domain. Either you can select the initial domain or a custom domain. Then you need to mention the name, first name, last name, and then you can create a password. Under groups and roles, you can add this particular user in a particular group, or you can add a role or permission to this particular user account. If you want to add this user in a group, you can click on this option, and then you can select the group in which you want to add this user. And if you want to add a role, you can click on here, and then you can select what role you want to assign to this particular user account. If you are creating a user account, you can simply leave it as default. By default, it is selected as user. So no admin role is assigned as of now. And then you can select the sign in. If you want to block sign in for this user account, by default it will be selected to no. If you want to block sign in for this account, you can simply click on yes, and this user will not be able to log into any of the Office 365 application. Next is usage location. Here you can select in which data center you want this account to be provisioned. This is very important field because if this field is not selected, you will not be able to assign license to this particular user. And rest you can add the job title, department name, company name, and even you can add a manager for this user as well. And once you have made the changes, you can click on create, and this user is created now. Let me click on refresh. So here we can see the test user account is created. Now, if you want to modify the properties for this user account, go to users and click on this user account, and then click edit properties. Now let's say if you want to modify the display name for this user, or you want to modify the first name, last name, user principal name, you can make all these changes from here. You can even add other properties as well. This will list all the attributes those are available for a particular user account in Azure Active Directory. If you want to check these attributes by category, you can click on identity. It will show you the attributes based on identity category, job information, contact information, and like this you can control all the attributes. You can modify the properties for this particular user account. So once you have made the changes, you can click on save. I haven't made any change, so I'll click on cancel. Next, if you want to delete the user, you can delete it from here. And if you want to reset the password, you can click on reset password. Now, when you reset a password for a user account, this will generate a temporary password. The administrator will give this temporary password to the user, and when user will log in with this password, he will have to change this temporary password to a permanent password. So from here you can copy the password and you can share this password to the user. Next is revoke sessions. This option helps you to revoke the current logged in session for a particular user from all the applications. That means as soon as you will revoke the session for this particular user will be logged out from all the applications. Next, if you want to assign a license for this user, you can click on licenses. And from here, you will click on assignments. And here you will see the list of licenses those are available in your tenant. For example, if you want to assign Office 365 E3 and Azure Active Directory Premium 2 license, you can select the user. Here you can see what services are included under these two licenses, and then you can click Save. So this way you can assign a license to the user as well. Now let's talk about groups in Azure Active Directory. In Azure Active Directory, you can create two types of groups, security group and Microsoft 365 group. A security group is used to assign bulk permissions or security policies. Instead of assigning permissions or security policies to the users one by one, you can create a security group. You can add users or devices within the security group as members and assign the permission on this security group. And all the members of this security group will inherit those permissions. So let's create a security group. I will give it a name, security group 1. Here you can add a group description. Next option is Azure AD roles can be assigned to the group. By default, this option is selected to no. That means you will not be able to add or you will not be able to assign any role to this particular security group. If you want to assign a role to this group, click on yes and then go to roles and then select no roles selected. Now from here you can select the roles that you want to add under this security group. For example, I want to assign Windows 365 administrator to this security group. So select the role and then click select. This role is added on this security group. Next, you need to add the owners and the members. So click on no owner selected and then add the owner and then click no member selected and you need to add a member or you can add members as per your requirement. Let's add two users as of now. And once you have made the changes, click on create. Click on yes. Now this security group is created. Let me refresh the page. So the security group is created and you can see the attributes. You can see the two users are added. You can see here as well total members. We have one owner. And now one thing I want to show you how to add members dynamically in a group. So let's give it a name, security group 2. Now here you can see membership type. You can see here assigned, dynamic user and dynamic device. When we select assigned, you can add owners and members manually. Like you can click here and then you can add the user manually. Same with members, you can add the members manually. But let's say I want to add members in this group basis on a query. Like let's say if custom attribute 1 equals to Delhi, then add that particular user in this group. So for that requirement, you will select dynamic user. Once you select dynamic user, next you will go to dynamic user members and then click add dynamic query. Now remember one thing, you can add only members basis on the dynamic query. You cannot add owners basis on the dynamic query. Owners you will have to add manually. So click add dynamic query. Now here you can add the conditions. For example, if let's say state equals, let's say Delhi, You can add more conditions as well. Click on add expression, and here you can select and or. So let's say if state equals to Delhi and country equals to India. Now, whosoever user have state attribute set to Delhi and country attribute set to India, those particular users will automatically be added in this security group. So like this, you can create dynamic queries. Once you have made the changes, once you have added the conditions here, you can click on save. And now this membership is added. Now you can click create and this security group will be created. So this security group 2 is created. Now if you check the membership type, it says dynamic. But if you check security group 1, its membership type says assigned. That means in this particular group, we have added the members manually. But in case of security group 2, we have added the members dynamically. That means on the basis of dynamic queries. So rest of the attributes you can see, source is cloud. That means this group is directly created in Office 365 or in Azure AD. And type of this group is security. So rest you can see all the properties and all the attributes of this particular group. Now let's talk about Microsoft 365 group. Let's go to new group, and here you will select Microsoft 365 group. Microsoft 365 group is used for collaboration. Multiple users can have access to the Office 365 group or Microsoft 365 group, and they can collaborate with each other using this group. The difference between security group and Office 365 group is the Office 365 group is a mail enabled group. When you create Microsoft 365 group or Office 365 group, you will get option to add group email address. But when you create a security group, you do not get an option for email address. So that is the reason Microsoft 365 group is a mail enabled group. And the other difference between a security group and Microsoft 365 group is you cannot add devices in Office 365 group as members. You can add only users. You will not be able to add devices. So let's create one Microsoft 365 group. Let's give it a name, M365 group 1. You can add email address for this particular group. You can add description. And next you can add roles on this particular group. You can select on no roles selected and then add a role as per your requirement. And then you can add owners and members. Now again, if you want to add members manually, let me select Microsoft 365 group here. So under membership type, you can define if you want to add members manually or you want to add members on the basis of dynamic queries. If you select assigned, you can simply go to members and then select the users that you want to add as members. But if you want to add users on the basis of conditions, click on dynamic user and then click add dynamic query. Now again, you can define certain conditions. For example, if extension attribute 1 equals IT, then that particular user will be part of this particular group. So like this, you can add the conditions and then click save. You can add honors manually because there is no query that you can define for ownership. So you need to add the honors manually. And once you have made the changes, you can click on create. So here you can see M365 group 1 is created. Membership type for this group is dynamic. Source is cloud. That means this group is directly created in Azure AD. It is not synchronized from on-premise. And type of this group is Microsoft 365 group. Now let me show you how to manage users and groups using PowerShell commands. Go to PowerShell. Before you run any command for Azure Active Directory, you need to connect this PowerShell to Azure Active Directory tenant first. And for that, you will run connect-Azure AD. Press enter. And here you need to enter the global administrator credentials for your tenant. So now I'm connected to Azure Active Directory. Now let's say you want to find all the users of your tenant. For that, you will run get-Azure AD user and press enter. This will list all the users, including their object ID, their display name, and their user principal name. Let's say if you want to find a particular user. So for that, you will run get-Azure AD user, and then you can use certain switches, like you can use object ID. If you already have object ID, you can copy it from here, paste it, and press enter. So this way you can list a particular user. Or instead of object ID, you can mention the user principal name of a particular user. Press enter, and this way also you can find a user. Now let's say you want to find the attributes, all the attributes for this particular account. For that, you will run get-Azure AD user-object ID, user principal name of the user, pipe fl. Press enter, and this will list all the attributes for this particular user. So like this, you can find a user. Now let's say you want to modify certain properties of a user account. So for that, you can run set-Azure AD user command. Let's say you want to modify city property for this particular admin account, for this account, and you want to add city as Delhi. Press enter. Now let's verify if we have made these changes successfully. Look for city attribute. So city attribute is modified to Delhi. Same way, if you want to modify any other attribute, for example, let me show you other attribute first. For example, state. We want to modify state property. So for that, you can use same command, and here you can mention state, and here you can type the value, and you can verify with the help of this command, and this attribute is updated. Now let's see how to manage groups using Azure AD PowerShell commands. If you want to see all the groups in your Azure AD tenant, you can run get-Azure AD group. Press enter, and this will list all the groups in your Azure AD tenant. If you want to check attributes of a particular group, you can run get-Azure AD group -object ID. And if you have object ID available for that particular group, you can type this way. If you want to check all the attributes, you can add pipe fl, and it will show you all the attributes for that particular group. Now, apart from object ID, you can use another switch as well, that is get-Azure AD group. Instead of object ID, you can use search string. And here you can type the display name of the group. Press enter, and this way you can list the attributes of this particular group with the help of search string attribute. Next, if you want to find the members of a group, for that you can run get-Azure AD group member -object ID, and you can Copy the object ID if you already have. Let's search this one. Paste the object ID and press enter. So this will show you the list of members of this particular group. And if you want to add members in a group, for that command will be add-Azure AD group member object ID, paste the object ID of the group, and then you will use switch reference object ID. Now the reference object ID is the user that you want to add. So let me copy object ID of a particular user here and paste the value. So we have added this user here. Now let's check the membership of this group. This is get-Azure AD group member object ID, and this is the object ID. Press enter. So you can see now we have 3 users. So we have added admin account in this particular group as a member. So this is how you can manage the groups and the users using Azure Active Directory PowerShell commands. In the next video, we will be talking about security defaults and multi-factor authentication. We will discuss how to set up and configure security defaults and multi-factor authentication in Azure Active Directory. So if you have learned something new from this particular video, please write in comments and please subscribe and share this channel within your community. Thank you guys. Thank you for your time. Take care.